What if microscopic particles of this isotope, imperceptibly present in the zinc coating of billions of bolts around the world, begin to react catalytically with moisture and carbon dioxide, causing accelerated corrosion? An initially unnoticeable process involving bridges, buildings, cars, and even airplanes will lead to a cascade of structural destruction, paralyze transportation, and endanger the existence of a modern civilization built on a seemingly solid foundation.
It all started, as these things always seem to, with something so utterly mundane you wouldn't even notice it. A bolt. Just a bolt. You see them everywhere, don't you? Holding together bridges, cars, buildings. The very bones of our world. We hammered them in, screwed them tight, and never gave them a second thought. Why would we? They were just there. And the thing about these bolts, the ones that held everything together, was their protective skin. A thin, silvery coat of zinc. Galvanization, they called it. A simple, cheap trick to keep the rust at bay. And that's where the whisper began. A barely perceptible hum in the background of our lives. A secret ingredient in that protective layer. A forgotten isotope that, under just the right conditions we ourselves created, of course, began to react. Not violently, not at first, just differently. It's like finding out your favorite mug, the one you've had for years, is slowly dissolving from the inside out, and you don't even realize it until you cut your lip. That's how it felt. A creeping, insidious decay hidden beneath a veneer of normalcy. We were so proud of our technological prowess, our ability to build, to connect, to conquer. We never stopped to consider that the very things we relied on could be poisoned. The whisper of rust, they call it now. A fitting name for the sound of our civilization slowly unmaking itself, one tiny, corroded connection at a time. I remember the first time it really registered. I was driving home, same route I'd taken for 15 years. It was a Tuesday, gray sky, and the kind that promises rain but never quite delivers. Suddenly, this sound, a high-pitched metallic shriek like nails on a chalkboard, but deeper, more resonant. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. My car's radio sputtered and died. The GPS flickered out. Then the engine. It coughed. A violent, sputtering cough, and the car lurched, pulling hard to the right. I managed to coast to the shoulder, heart hammering. I got out, expecting a flat tire, a blown hose, something I understood. But the tires looked fine. The engine compartment? It looked normal, if a little grimy. I kicked a loose bit of gravel, and that's when I saw it. On the guardrail, the one separating the lanes, a section of the metal was peeling. Not rust, not the flaky orange stuff you'd expect. It looked like the metal itself was weeping, shedding its form like a snake shedding its skin. It was a sickly, dull gray, almost powdery. I touched it, and it crumbled under my fingertips. Dust. Just dust. I shook my head. Must have been a bad batch of paint, I told myself, or maybe some new kind of industrial cleaner someone spilled. The car, though, that was unsettling. I called roadside assistance. The dispatcher, bless her, sounded bored. Another one, she sighed. Seems like cars are just falling apart lately. We're getting calls nonstop. Mechanics are booked solid for weeks. They're saying it's the cheaper parts manufacturers are using now. Cutting corners, you know? That explanation was just plausible enough. We're all used to things breaking, to planned obsolescence. We nod, we grumble, we accept it. Online, it was the same. Memes about cars spontaneously combusting. Jokes about built-in obsolescence taken to a whole new level. The news showed grainy footage of bridges groaning and cars sputtering, framing it as a series of isolated technical failures, a temporary inconvenience. A few weeks of supply chain hiccups, they said. Nothing to worry about. But that dust, that strange, weeping metal, it stuck with me. It was too wrong, too quiet for such a dramatic decay.
The inconvenience lasted weeks, then months. The initial memes and jokes gave way to a gnawing unease. You'd see it everywhere if you looked. Not just cars. Buildings started to sag. Not dramatically, just a subtle shift, a tired slump. Cracks appeared in concrete that shouldn't have. And the sounds became more frequent. A deep, groaning thrum that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. It was like the world was clearing its throat, a prelude to a terminal cough. I tried to stay rational, told myself it was just mass hysteria amplified by the constant stream of bad news. But then came the day of the Sky Bridge. It was one of the city's proudest achievements, a massive suspension bridge that arced across the river like a steel rainbow. People drove across it every day, oblivious. I was at my apartment, watching the news, when the anchor, usually so composed, suddenly went pale. The camera, which had been focused on some politician droning on, swung wildly. Then we heard it. Not a bang, not an explosion. It was a shriek, a long, drawn-out, agonizing scream of tearing metal. The Sky Bridge wasn't collapsing, it was unraveling. I ran to the window. My apartment was on the 20th floor, a good view of the river. What I saw, it seared into my mind. The bridge, a few miles away, was literally coming apart. Not in a sudden catastrophic plunge, but like a giant rusted chain being pulled apart link by link. Cables snapped, not with a crack, but with a sickening, wet thwump. Sections of the roadway buckled, then peeled away like sodden cardboard. And the cars. Oh God, the cars. They weren't falling. They were being carried down, suspended for a horrifying moment before being swallowed by the churning water below. It was slow, horrifyingly slow, like watching a dying animal. The sound, that tearing, screaming sound, it went on for what felt like an eternity. It wasn't just the bridge. I could hear it now, closer. A low, continuous groaning from the building itself, a sigh of immense, weary metal. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, her cat, Mr. Fluffernutter, I heard her scream from the hallway, a raw animal sound that cut through the metallic lament. I didn't go to her. I couldn't. I was frozen, staring at the impossible disintegration of something so solid, so permanent. In that moment, the carefully constructed walls of my denial crumbled. All the rationalizations, the explanations, the memes, they dissolved into the dust. It wasn't bad parts. It wasn't cutting corners. It was the stuff itself. The very foundation of our constructed world was failing. A primal fear, cold and sharp, pierced through me. The fear of being utterly, completely alone. The fear that everything I knew, everything I had ever relied on, was about to vanish. The dominant thought wasn't about survival. Not yet.
It was the sheer cosmic absurdity of it all. We, the architects of the modern age, brought down by a damn bolt, a tiny, insignificant piece of metal undone by a microscopic flaw, a hidden whisper of decay. The sheer fragility of it all, that's what hit me. How precariously balanced we were. And then, as the groaning of the building intensified, I understood. This wasn't a glitch. This was the end of the line.
The sounds changed after the sky bridge. The tearing and screaming subsided, replaced by a silence. A heavy, watchful silence punctuated by the creaks and groans of a world in decay. The constant hum of traffic, the distant wail of sirens, the chatter of people. All gone. What replaced it was the sound of wind whistling through broken structures, the drip of water in empty buildings, and the soft, constant scrabbling of something. Small things, finding their place in the ruins. My daily ritual now starts with water. Not from the tap, of course. The pipes are long gone, rusted through before the water even stopped flowing. I have a system. A series of collection barrels on the fire escape, angled to catch the rain. It's never enough. I have to filter it, boil it. The process takes hours. Hours I used to spend... I don't even remember what I used to do. Read? Watch those endless videos? It all feels like a dream from another life. Food is different. Canned goods are the new gold. Anything with a metal lid is suspect. We hoard them, guard them like precious jewels. But the real treasures are the old things. Things made of wood, of glass, of sturdy, unfussy ceramic. My grandmother's old cast-iron skillet, passed down through generations, is now my most prized possession. Its weight, its solidity, it feels like an anchor in this sea of decay. Cars are just sculptures. They litter the streets, skeletal remains of a forgotten era. They're useless, not just because they don't run, but because even looking at them feels wrong. Like staring at a tombstone. A constant reminder of what we lost and how easily it was lost. The air itself has changed. The sharp, metallic tang of pollution is gone, replaced by something earthier. The smell of damp concrete, of growing things reclaiming their space, of a faint, pervasive odor of decay. It's not unpleasant, not exactly. It's just the smell of the world healing in its own slow, inevitable way. We've learned to live small. The idea of traveling more than a few miles feels like an alien concept. Why would you? Where would you go? The world has shrunk to the radius of your own 2 feet. Cities are becoming islands, their connections severed, their inhabitants isolated. We've adapted, of course, found new ways to communicate, to share, to survive. But there's a sadness that clings to everything. a quiet understanding that we are living in the twilight of an age. It's a different kind of existence, slower, quieter, more brutal, but also more real, perhaps? I often stand on the fire escape, watching the sun set over the skeletal skyline, and I wonder,